We are here.
Yeah,
It's time to get going. Everybody, my name is Jason Ledlow, Trevor Nelson, HGA free webinar series number
episode 111.
111. Is this 111? Is this
Yeah,
111
it's
episodes?
111,
Wow.
man. Yeah,
Um, I just
exercise
want to
in,
let y'all know,
in
hey,
consistency.
yeah, if you're watching this live, if you're seeing, please, any questions, give it to us. If you've got if you're
Mm,
seeing this on recording, I know a lot of you are. If you have any comments or questions or something comes up, please, and we don't get to it, you don't hear it answered, please let us know, give
mm,
us that feedback. Um, I'm going to change our little intro up. We are in the fundraising business. We help nonprofits raise more money. We do that by providing trips and experiences that you can use in your events to raise more money. We also have a great software platform. This is about all the commercial you're going to get. We're going to get in,
mm.
but I just wanted to say that, and I'm really excited about today's topic. I this is something that we actually, when we did boot camp, what has been a month ago now, we
Yeah.
had boot camp. It was one of the most commented on portions of the entire thing. And the thing that kept coming to comment, that the recurring piece was, I've never get this at any place else in the
Mm,
nonprofit world. We just don't get this. And they're
mm,
like, I really needed that. And so before we, jump off into it, I want to just kind of give some background. So Trevor's the one that really is the inspiration for this. He presented this at our boot camp. It was very well received. And, I want to tell y'all, I know y'all, if there are those of you who've been here, you get to see Trevor. If you don't know, um, besides being a super successful entrepreneur, a Trevor's also a former and retired professional endurance athlete. He still trains and can compete at that level, but he did that for a long, long time. And endurance athletes, I mean, these are people that run ultra marathons, triathlons, and competed and won at a very high level. Um, but the other thing that I want to point out that Trevor is, he is a world class encourager, and I like to say he is an ambassador of gratitude.
mm. I
And
haven't heard
and
that.
you
Thank you.
know,
Thank you.
I know I saved it for today,
I
brother.
love that. Thank
Um,
you. Wow.
and the reason I
Make me
want to,
cry.
I think that's important as we're talking about this, because when I met Trevor several years ago, that was always the thing. He always overwhelmed me with gratitude, but he always had time, and he always was able to share, and he had plenty. But as I got to know Trevor more and more and more over the years, and now we've become best friends, business partners. We travel together and spend quite a bit, as much time as we can, even though we live 1,000 miles apart. Um,
Mhm.
he is very intentional with his self care, and that's something that I learned, because if you just saw that one side of it, you would go, this is the most selfish guy I've ever seen in my life. But I know that he's the most selfless man that I know. And that's where I think we get into a disconnect, and why this topic I think is so good.
I
Because
agree.
we
Yeah.
we we feel like, well, if I don't do this, it becomes, if I don't make time, if I'm doing this, I'm not, giving everything I can, and I'm being, you know, that's selfish if I do that. And there is a lot of vanity that goes into fitness and self-care and stuff like that. And that's not what I'm talking about, though. I'm talking about being in a position, preparing yourself physically and mentally to do this job. Because, I mean, we said this earlier today, this is a hard
Yeah.
job. Being in the nonprofit
Yep.
fundraising world is hard. It is hard
Yeah.
physically,
Advancing the mission.
emotionally,
Yeah.
mentally, and it's hard. And so I know, as somebody, I have to, is I didn't take care of myself for many years, and then I did, but nobody does that as well, I think, as you do, Trevor. And I think that's why,
Oh,
wanted to share that, and to
thank you,
talk about
brother.
it today.
Well, I didn't cry yet, so that's good. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Um, I think, well, yeah, I had the good fortune of presenting some of these ideas, and we're not going to unpack all of them. There's relevance in all of them. Maybe we can do it, a little bit at a time.
Mhm.
I had the good fortune of unpacking some of these thoughts publicly for the first time at our boot camp, and I was definitely nervous, and I got to do it. With me, it's just been a story of experience, and I have literally hit the jackpot with the people that have come into my life and helped me from when I was a youth, when I first became an athlete, when I got into business. Um, Jason and I being together, now and doing what we do. What happened was it all kind of started coming together for me, and things started clicking in my personal life and my professional life. And I say in 2015, 2016, and I started writing things down because I was like, it was speaking to me, like when people say, well, God spoke to me and I had to, it's like, it was like
Mhm.
someone shook me and I really had to start writing this stuff down. So this has been a long time in the making, and I am not very comfortable. I'm getting more comfortable. I haven't been very comfortable about hearing people talk about me like that, like you just did, if I'm being dead serious, honest. However, I do think there's a tremendous amount of relevance. Even if these are ideas and thoughts that you've heard before, I think there's a tremendous amount of relevance and practicality to this message that I'm kind of cultivating, and I get the good fortune to share today. And then we're going to continue to share it and develop it. And we talk about self-care. That's something we've all heard. Jason brings up a fantastic point about how it's not selfish. And I developed these 4 rules, and like I said, I'm not going to unpack all of them and bore you with them today. But my first rule was, and what we're going to talk about, is be kind to everyone. And that came really, really easy to me. That was always really, really easy. It's always been very easy for me to make friends. And when I tell you, I started writing these things down 7 years ago plus, I started realizing that I could just be me in my personal life and just be me in my professional life. And they coalesced perfectly. And I was just me. I was just, when I talked to Jason on the phone when we first met, I was the same way as when I talked to a friend, at home and had a beer or something like that, later on that day. I was just me. And it was things like, if I'm thinking about you, I'm gonna reach out. So those things came very, very easy to me. Being kind to everyone probably should come pretty easy to you. I certainly hope, as a human being. And then there was a catch. And the catch was, be kind to everyone, especially yourself. And that's when the top came off, and the rule, the subtext of that was, you cannot give what you do not have. And then so here we are with the self-care situation. And you can be kind to everyone when your cup's running low for a little while. It will sustain, but then it's going to hit empty, and then you're going to be in a really deep, dark spot. And Jason and I talk about this constantly and are constantly coaching nonprofit professionals. And we have a very, very strong duty and experience and opinion that we need to share this topic with all of you. Because, like Jason said, we think that your job can be really, really difficult and really demanding and really taxing. So this could go in a number of different directions. The topic and the
Yeah.
conversation.
Well,
I want to hear, some feedback.
I'm gonna keep some curbs on it for us, but
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
well, Trevor, I
But we're
think,
sensitive to this. Yeah.
speaking of that, let's kind of dive into this. So, one thing that you talk about is you cannot give what you do not have, and
Yep.
I know that there's a lot of people that are going to hear this, that are here today, and they sit there and go, "Yeah, I feel like I'm just drained. My cup's empty. How do I get it filled back up?" Well,
Mm-hmm.
in my experience, that can happen in a healthy way and an unhealthy
Mm-hmm.
way. The unhealthy way
Mm-hmm.
is where I start sucking out of other people, and I
Mm-hmm.
start just drawing them down. And maybe it's not intentional, and I don't think in most cases it is, but maybe it's with our spouse, our significant other, maybe coworkers, things like that. We start, pouring out all the junk to somebody, and maybe they're not quite ready for it. And so one thing that I know that you're very adept at is that you always lead with that kindness. You always lead with the gratitude. And so, that's why I said an ambassador of gratitude. That's the first thing that was uh, first thing that I remember about you is that you were just so grateful. And so why don't you talk about that and how you've cultivated that and how you keep coming back? Because I know you well enough to know that that's
Yeah.
not always where you are. Inside, you may be sitting there going, you're frustrated, you're not, you're not exactly in the best place, maybe you're a little pissed off about something or whatever's going on.
Underfed or
But
something,
yeah,
overtrained or
hangry.
underfed
But
or
I'm
whatever.
not
Yeah.
talking. But
Yeah.
just from that
Yeah.
standpoint, how do you reshape that back where you can bring that back to come back to the gratitude?
Well, I mean, that's a really good question. Yeah, I think that I think that you can. I think well, I think that you can here's another one of my rules.
Well, no.
I
How
think
do
you can
you
be
do
very
it right
patient with
now?
your.
Right now, how do you do it?
No, right, right. I do that by letting myself off the hook. So if I'm upset or I'm angry or there's something bothering me because I am a human being and I get frustrated, I used to internalize it a lot, but I have outlets and it's good. But you know what I constantly remind myself of, brother, is that I have a track record and I know who I am. But at the end of the day, I actually I a lot of times I say I'm going to let myself off the hook. And I created another rule for myself, which was be patient. Those things this world is moving so fast, man. I mean, give me a break. I mean, we travel through this world so darn quick.
Mhm.
What I've learned and realized is that those moments are very ephemeral for me. I've experienced severe loss as well, and sickness and things being taken away and poverty and all those things. But they don't. For me, that I just what I realized is that when you're down, I force myself to not be down for too long, but at the same time, I am patient with myself. I give myself grace to have those moments, and I realize, and I almost like like a guided meditation would say, like you're observing, like it's traffic going by,
Mhm.
right? And
So what?
and
So I,
you could, you know,
so what I hear you saying is, even
okay,
though you get in that moment and you're like, well, why am I'm frustrated, I'm mad, but you know what? It's
yeah,
okay. I can be that way, but I'm
yeah,
going to let myself off the hook, go back to who
yep,
I am, because this is who I
yep,
want to be, and
yeah.
make a conscious decision to do that and not just
Yeah,
react.
and it could be a half hour. I just, very, very young, I realized, and I made a lot of really bad mistakes and made some really poor decisions as a young person and a young adult.
Mhm.
I was just realized when I'm down, I'm not down for very long. And I just understood that it was going to pass.
Mhm.
Um, I, then frustration with business sometimes or with people or what have you, that's going to come and go. You're going to deal with that at your own organizations with coworkers and donors and volunteers and all that. And but I come back to this as well, though. It's very, very, apparent to me that what we're doing is a privilege.
Yeah.
I really genuinely feel that way, man. You know what I mean? What we're doing, and I think that there's some symbiosis here to what people are doing with their organizations as well. Doing what we get to do is very hard. It can be very, very hard. But it's a privilege. And there's so much work that goes on without the light shining on you, without people knowing what you're doing. A lot of times you don't get recognized for it or whatever. And we're sensitive to that. And I totally get that. But the work is a privilege. And I'm very, very grateful for that. And that's what someone stopped me the other day and hit me with a question, kind of like you're hitting me right now. Because I wasn't prepared for all these questions. But he said, I think that you're probably the most optimistic person that comes in this coffee shop. And I just order my coffee from this guy and I say hi, and I got to know his first name and he knows mine. And I go in there and I get my toast that I tell you about.
Hmm.
And he said,
Honey
I
toast.
think
He
you're the
always
most
tells me I'm going to
optimistic
go get some
person.
honey toast.
Yeah, it's got honey on it. It's amazing. I do that as a once again to be kind to myself. And and I he caught me by surprise. And I said, well, hey, man, I mean, I'm here, hey, I mean, that's the first thing I thought of, like, but how do I answer that? He's like, what do you do? He's like, what is it? And I was like, why are you so optimistic? And I was like, oh, it's kind of boring that way, um, you know, but I told him, this is exactly what I told him. He caught me. And it was really weird. My response was odd. At least for me, it was, because I don't say these things out loud. I said, life has never let me down. I said
Yeah.
that to him. I thought about it. I said, hey man, life has never let me down.
Well,
I've had
I think,
such good fortune. You know,
but to clarify that, let's go back to what you just said. You said, I've suffered loss, setbacks,
yep.
failure.
Yeah.
You've
Yeah.
had all those other things, significant, because I know you well enough to know some of these are very significant. But
Yep.
that decision to be optimistic, and I do believe that there are some easier for some people than there are other, but I don't think that we
I
have to.
wholeheartedly agree.
But somebody says, well, I'm just, I tend to be really negative. I'm just not.
Yes.
I don't have that natural deal. But I can tell you, as somebody who was raised in an environment was kind of was pretty negative, you can
Hmm.
make a
Hmm.
decision to change that. I completely
I
believe
agree.
that.
I think it's a
Um,
discipline that can certainly be
yeah.
honed for sure. That's I think it
Yeah.
boils down to is a discipline and a
I'll
mindset,
tell
right?
somebody, I'll tell
That
you,
can be
you
honed.
guys, a funny thing that I used to do. And I actually had it up here until just a while back. We were doing my cleaning my desk, but um, I always used to put a sticky note up on my monitor up here that would say smile. And the reason
Mm.
is because
Hmm.
sometimes I forget to smile and I get real serious and it looks like I'm mad. And
Yeah.
I found myself doing that. And I don't have
Yeah.
this natural where I just, some people have a natural smile. They just smile all the time. And I don't have that.
Right.
But
Yeah.
that's not my inside. That's not a reflection of what's going on inside.
No.
And I think sometimes we have to do it. And I used to do this when I had my telephone company with a call center and there was no camera. Okay. There's no
Hmm.
camera.
Hmm.
There's nobody's looking at them. It's
This is
not like
pre-Zoom.
we had
Yeah.
a call center, cubicles, everything, and they're dealing with, our customers. We sold home phone service, and so they're doing this, and our client, our customers were talking to them and everything, but you could tell the difference in somebody's voice if they smile or if they don't. And we studied this,
Yeah.
so we'd put a mirror and we would put little things that would say smile or mind,
Yeah.
and it is amazing what just that physical act follows that intent. So the response, the physical response, is palpable.
Yeah. Oh, it's no question. It's no question. Can I share a call center story?
Please.
So my family owned two small businesses growing up, and I was an active part of both of them, working on the weekends, working on holidays and stuff like that. And then um, I drop out of college and I start running ultra marathons professionally. I got this really cool representative, agent, and he got me a great shoe deal and signed me up for a 3-year contract, which is don't get it confused. It wasn't like a bunch of money or anything like that. I mean, if I podiumed in my first race, I got $250. So anyway, and he got me all these sponsors. So I had everything for free. I just didn't have gas to put in my car, you know what I mean, to get to the
Yeah.
races and stuff. But what's funny was so I drop out of college, I start training and racing full time, and really, really great, time of my life and being outside and running up mountains. And but I needed a job. And I started working at a gym. We were talking about personal training. I started working at a gym. I was like, well, I know training. I could probably figure it out because I'm doing it
Mm-hmm.
myself, right? So some lady comes in and she's like, wow, I just like your attitude and stuff. And I want you to meet my husband. So I'm not ashamed of this because it was way back in the day. This is almost 20 years ago. He owned a inbound car warranty call center, and he recruited me to come work for it. And I had no sales experience. I had no idea that I had any sales talent. I didn't view myself that way. I was loquacious, not a great listener at all, as a matter of fact. And I talk really, really fast. And I came in there and I started hitting it out of the park right away. But I was the only guy with the first round of hirees that was hitting it out of the park, and everyone else had to go do their own thing to make a living and stuff like that. And I stayed, and I couldn't believe the kind of money that was coming into my bank account, at 20, 24 years old, And what was very interesting, they start hiring professional salespeople during my tenure there. And a gentleman came in, and he and I, we liked each other, and he's a very, very nice man. He's probably my elder by 30 years. And he just wanted an easy job where he could just talk on the phone and sell. And he was like a retired car salesman or what have you. And we were sitting around, and I constantly was selling more than everybody else. And it was awesome for me. It was really, really cool. Um, And I didn't know why. And I couldn't train people how to do it because I didn't even know why it was easy for me to do it. I was just doing it. And I was plugged in and working hard, and taking a lot of calls. And the gentleman said, the sales manager was like, why do you think Trevor's able to sell these, but everyone else can't sell it at his point? And he's at his level. And the gentleman that I told you that was 30 years my older said, he smiles through the telephone. And because I was just me. I was
Well, it
just me.
it it
And I
does.
never forgot that. It's
And I
so
think that's
funny.
that's a
Yeah.
simple thing, but it's whenever we as non-professional fundraisers, we start making those phone calls, or we start reaching out to those donors, and and I know everybody knows how to switch it on. I know if you're a professional,
For
you've been
sure.
doing this at all, you can do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, it's just a little simple, but like I have to do, put the sticky note on my monitor,
Yeah.
remember that.
Yeah.
And because my wife will remind me that, hey, I saw the recording and everything, and you weren't smiling very much. Why are you so mad? I'm like, I wasn't mad at all. So I
Well,
have
you're
to I have to do that.
contemplative.
Yeah.
You're
Well, I'm going to
contemplative.
change gears a little bit, and because we were talking about this, right before we started,
Okay.
um, your training regimen. I'm just going to tell all y'all, if you tried to keep up with him, when I say a professional, he still trains like a professional athlete. I mean, he's amazing. I
I train like a part-time professional athlete.
Yeah, well, okay, you can keep
Part-time
saying that, but I'm just saying I've
professional.
trained around a lot of pros, and Trevor can make mincemeat of all of them. Um, but talk about that a little bit, because you're
Yeah.
constantly tweaking and doing, and I know, and you geek out on it to some extent,
Yeah.
but there's a significant part of your well-being, and you talk about how you regulate and how you kind of keep your mental, for not just physical, but as much of it's probably mental, by doing that.
Mm-hmm. Um, yeah, I'll speak to it. Well, I had the good fortune of finding out what makes me tick pretty early, and that was movement. I was always moving very young. I talked about starting to run at a young age. Hey, by the way, I didn't have no running background. I just wanted to do it because I thought it was hard, and I saw the people doing it, and I was very competitive. And like, if they can do it, I can do it, and that's what it kind of boiled down to. For getting into running, I wasn't running cross country in high school, for instance, but I was always athletic. So, but what was very interesting is I figured out what makes me tick and what makes me really happy. And there's a dichotomy between movement, doing hard stuff, right, and challenging
Mhm.
things, and being outside. And so I found, and that's why it's like, I figured out what works for me. And I call it what makes you feel whole, or a place that makes you feel whole. And it could be a
Mhm.
number of different spots, for me, but from my experience, and I've taken you there, it's like, I like this spot out in the woods with this beautiful bridge on this creek in this national park that's 15-minute drive from my home. And I ride my bike there, I run
Mhm.
there, and I try to get there at least once a week. And there's times where I'm there 5 days a week, and it never gets old. And what was interesting was, I started running pre-smartphone. This is kind of interesting how this came about. I started running pre-smartphone, and I'd go out in the woods, and I was trying to tell my parents and friends, like, "Oh man, I went and climbed up this I ran up this mountain and down the backside, and I saw a bear, and I saw some places I've never seen before. I don't even know if man's traveled there in the last 10 years or something like that." And I would take those little portable, those little disposable phones, those little Kodak
Mhm.
phones, or not phones, pardon me, cameras,
Cameras.
and take pictures. And I develop them, and they look like crap. I was like, that's not what it looked like when I saw it.
Yeah.
And what was so funny was when all these things were happening, and I was outside, and I was doing hard stuff, and those are wins. You know what I mean? That's what I call them. I call them wins, like whether there's a finish line involved or not. But if you can get outside to a place that makes you feel
Mhm.
whole, that's a win, and that's huge, and that's filling your cup up. You know what I mean? Because that's how how I felt, what it did for me. And what was interesting is I stopped trying to tell people what I saw, and I figured out something where it was meant for me. It was my secret. You
Mhm.
know what I mean? I just quit trying to describe the most beautiful place I have ever seen, or I saw a 400-pound bear running in front of me, and it scared me. Like, I thought I was going to get, murdered by a bear,
Yeah.
stuff like that. I just, like, that was meant for me, and that's okay. And that's okay. And I'm happy to talk about it if anyone asks, but I just realized it was for me, and it filled me up, man. And it still does to this day. So I figured
So,
out what makes me, what works.
one thing I think that is important to tell everybody, obviously, like I said, Trevor's an elite athlete, so he operates on a whole nother level. I mean, we were in Cabo, and he and his wife Shelby and Teresa wasn't going with us, but we were just kind of taking a little jog down the beach, and he turns sideways and starts racing up and down this big dune. While we're jogging, he's going up and down this thing, and so that's the thing. But I don't want to confuse, because I can't keep up with him. I don't try. Okay, I'm not, that's not even in my thing. Um, but it's, don't confuse the activity with
No.
just the action. What the
Yeah,
activity
yeah,
is,
yeah. And
and
the
the action
outcome.
is to move. And I think one of the things that I want to just share with y'all, we share each other's catalogs. I mean, sorry, catalogs, calendars. And so I know what's on his, he knows what's on mine. And we have this
Mm-hmm.
on our calendar. I
Mm-hmm.
train almost every day, and some of the stuff is on my calendar, some of it's not. But
Mm-hmm.
Trevor also puts on his calendar, T trains. And what I would just invite you all to do is to look at your calendar and at least 10 minutes, 10
Yeah.
minutes put it on your calendar and just go for a walk. If it's a walk in
Yeah.
the building, if it's a walk around the building, around the block, up and down to the mailbox or something like that, I would
Mm-hmm.
challenge you to do something and to put it on your calendar and not negotiate with yourself about it. And that's the second thing or the next
Right.
piece I wanted to bring with Trevor, is something that I learned from him, is not to negotiate with these things, because
Mm-hmm.
I I have power lifted and trained and done triathlons, but when I started doing my triathlon training, it's hard. This is not in my sweet spot. I'm not a
It
runner,
is
don't
so
like to run,
hard.
don't like to swim. I
It's
mean,
just
I love to
hard.
swim and be in the water, but swimming's hard, especially I'm 6'5" and 265. I like a fire hydrant. It's like a
Yeah.
push. It's like
It's
a
just hard.
bulldozer trying to swim. It just doesn't go
I
very
said it's
well.
hard 3 times. It's
Yeah.
hard. Triathlon training's
Um,
hard.
but one thing that you say, I learned from you, is that don't negotiate with yourself. Just don't do it.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, I mean, I think, but and that could, once again, that could bleed into a lot of parts of your life. You know what I mean? Like, I'm
Mhm.
gonna go and be kind to myself for 30 minutes and go read a book outside or whatever. And we talk about training a lot just because it's in our lives. But it's very, very easy to let things pull you away. It's very easy to let fatigue set in. Fatigue is real. I think that you should be patient with yourself. I think I keep saying that.
Mhm.
um but but yes, like you said, not negotiating. And how many times have you heard someone said, I mean, you can go on the internet and hear someone say this a million times, you know how much better I felt once I did it?
Yeah.
Or, right,
Yeah.
I mean, that's real. It's
Well,
like,
and
I
part of,
just
and negotiate is, let's say that, I put on my calendar that I'm going to go walk for 10 minutes and I'm going to do it as soon as this is over with. I'm going to go do it. But what happens
yeah,
is I see an
phone
email pop,
rings,
and I see a
email,
phone call come in, and I think, oh, I've got to
yep.
respond to that right now.
Hmm.
Well,
You actually don't.
is 10 minutes, that's my point. I actually
Yeah,
don't have
yeah,
to.
right. Well,
They're
you
not
taught me
going to
this
know.
too.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I, it's something I've had to,
Because I'll
I had to
answer that
learn.
call. I'll answer that
Yeah.
call.
And, I that I can wait 10 minutes. I can
Yep.
hold up
Yep.
for a little bit to go do this. I don't have to go and jump in and do this immediately, because I have something on my calendar, and it's just as important as if I was talking to our top client, one of our, somebody's a donor, or, one of my team members,
A team member.
my
Yeah.
partner. And but that is just as important, and not to negotiate with myself that, well, Becky's
Yeah.
calling, I better take her call right now.
Isn't that
And
interesting
Becky,
how
and I love
that
you, Becky, but I'm just
we
telling you,
do
if
love
I've
you.
got 10 minutes on my training time, for a walk or something that's on my
Sure.
calendar,
Yeah.
I'm going to
Yeah.
go do that first. And that's something that I
Yep.
really learned from Trevor, because in fact, I know whenever he's not doing that stuff, it has an ill effect on his ability with clients and people and stuff. Not much,
For
but it
sure.
does.
Yeah. Yeah. You know me well enough to know. Yeah.
Hmm.
Um, Yeah, it's interesting to me, that hierarchy of importance and needs that's like almost societal at this point. And you mentioned this at the onset. Self-care is not selfish. You,
No.
once again, you cannot give what you do not have. You can do it for a minute, but I'm telling you, you will run dry, you know?
Hmm.
And it's just interesting how that's been embedded, the hustle and all that stuff. And you, like you said, we have a hierarchy of like, oh gosh, the important client. And you know, the funny thing about it is letting yourself off the hook and realizing that they will be there in 10 minutes,
Yeah.
you know, or 15 minutes, or it could be 90 minutes. I don't know, you know, they'll be there.
Well, I
And
personally,
it's okay.
I personally have terror. I get this feeling of guilt.
Uh-huh. Yes.
I start
Yep. That's
feeling
real.
guilty if I don't do
That's
that.
real.
Just like, if I didn't work 80 hours a week, whenever I
Yep.
was younger, that
You weren't working hard.
I wasn't working
Yeah.
hard. Yeah. And
Yep.
so it's
Yep.
all this screwed up values. Anybody else have that? I want to just
Ah,
say, does any of y'all start feeling guilty if you doing something for yourself?
oh,
Um,
still.
within the work time. Yeah. Like Jackie, thank
Yeah.
you. Um, one honest person, the whole thing, but maybe the rest of y'all have it figured out. But,
Everyone else has got to
uh,
figure it out. But what was very fascinating conversation you and I had um yesterday with John, a really lovely guy,
yeah,
super
yeah.
intelligent guy.
This will
And
be
yeah,
coming up on
Bev,
a
absolutely, thank you.
podcast. So hang
Yeah,
on
we
for
got
a bit to make more
we had
money.
a
Yeah,
fascinating conversation. One of our longest podcasts. It'll probably be broken up into 2 episodes. With the gentleman that came to the boot camp, and he
yeah.
runs a lovely nonprofit. We got to meet his development director as well, and he said, but what he said to me, and I won't go too much of a deep dive. He said, um, fear, guilt, and shame.
Hmm.
Any one of those will stop you from experiencing joy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it could be applied,
Yep.
Jay. We know what context it's applied with with John and the nonprofit that he runs, but that could be applied to what you're talking about with the guilt of not working 80 hours, or
Hmm.
oh my gosh, I had to get to the, you know. But it will. But think about that though. It was so indelible. He said, fear, shame, and guilt in whatever order will stop you from understanding and appreciating and feeling true joy. And I
Well,
was
and
like,
and I want to
man,
bring up to a
he
point
hit me like a
because
freight train with that.
it
Yeah.
well, it did me too because he's using a context of drug and alcohol abuse.
12
But his point
steps. Yeah.
was it doesn't just because it's not drug and alcohol abuse, it could be something else. For me, it's
He was
binge
talking about,
eating.
yeah. He was talking
I'm
about
a,
overeating. Yeah.
for me, it's
Yeah.
if I have one Pringle, I'm going to eat the whole can because you can't just eat
But he
one.
talked about that. He talked about
Yeah,
someone he sponsors that was into
yeah.
Overeaters
And
Anonymous. He
so
said, yeah.
I think that, being able to let yourself off the hook, back to your point, let
Yeah.
yourself off the hook,
Yeah.
forgive your, that feeling and just say, this is not a feeling. It's just a feeling. It's not reality.
Mm-hmm.
This is not the reality. The fact that if I don't take, Trevor's phone call right this second, that he's going to be mad at me or he's going to be upset or he's going to,
Right.
not give me this donation or he's not going to come in, come and be a volunteer. That's not true.
That's not a you problem. That's a
It's just,
them
it's a
problem.
lie is
Yeah.
what it is.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
we get ourselves caught up into that.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
I want to hit the last point I want to talk about, and I think this is something that, and I have experienced this off and on in my life, but you take it really to it's a very special thing and you have a great way to talk about it, but it's how you personally journal, um, and
Mm-hmm.
how you do that and what that does for you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And real
It's
quick,
been
I'm going to ask you, before you do that, I'm going to ask a
yeah.
question real quick, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Who
Yeah.
here, you can just do it by a show of hands, currently journals or has journaled in the past of any, more than just a week or a day? One. Anybody else? Two. Thank you. Well, thank you
Yeah.
for sharing that.
Yeah.
So I'm going to
Yeah.
raise my hand and say I'm a third. I'm on onto that as well. But um, go ahead, Trevor, and tell us about how
Oh,
you.
I mean, yeah, there's so many different facets of that. I heard something fascinating, which was basically like a reiteration of doing it. I travel, it's within eyesight of me at all times, pretty much, unless I'm like in the car or something, my journal. And I love writing down things and chronicling them. And I was like, why am I doing this? Is it because I want my kids to read this when I'm gone one day, or my wife to stumble upon it? see how much I care about her. And what I realized over time in just doing it, is you don't have to have, it doesn't have to be an outcome or a reason or anything like that. It's just thoughts and things like
Mhm.
that. But B, once again, it was for me, and I just started doing it, and it was something that was really, really. I love the written word. I have to be honest with you. I uh, I'm not an elocutionist, but I fancy myself to become one day, And I love the written word, and I love um, expressing thoughts on paper. And so there's been a huge, maturation with this with me as well. It's where thank you, Bev. That's awesome. Appreciate that. Good, good. Yeah, it's nice. Let's uh, uh, we want it to be relaxing, it's for sure. I think it's a nice change of pace, as a matter of fact, for us. But because we're like, full on in really, really busy season right now. All the more reason to take the time to do that. It's for me. And I heard someone say something, like I said, there was a reiteration. It's a reflection of your subconscious, and that you just need to do it.
Mhm.
And for me, I'll write down. It was like training journal. It was like years ago. There was no apps or smartphones, and I was writing down. It's like, this is what I did a week out from a race, and this is what I did the day before, and I would just go back and use that as a tool. And then it became, this is how I feel, and this is what I ate, and yada yada yada. And I just wanted to really chronicle all this so it would create a roadmap for me, and I could share it. I'm happy to share experience, and stuff like that. And then it got serious. My life got serious, in the best possible way. But once again, like 2015, 2016 is when I really, really started just like taking a step back. And I'm in my 30s. I'm not making dumb 20-year-old mistakes anymore. And I meet the woman of my dreams, and we start hatching the idea for this company. And I start realizing, all these relationships that I'm building, and I have no expectation, and all these lovely things. And I start writing it down. I was like, I need to write this down. And
Mhm.
I just now started getting a little more serious about writing down these 4 rules that I came up with, and now sharing them publicly and stuff like that. And it was really just because I started writing them down, because there were thoughts, and I thought not from not like, oh, I know something you don't know. These are things, none of these are my thoughts that happen for me, but you've heard them before. You've heard about being kind to people and being patient and stuff like that. It's the practical experience from my perspective that I feel in my soul that people need to hear these things as a reminder. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? As a reminder, because Jason, you said it a minute ago. Some people wake up happier than others, and I totally get that, and that's very, very real. I have mental illness in my family, the most tragic kind. And I was given a gift where every single day I wake up happy. Well, there
Mhm.
has to be a reason
Yeah.
for it. You know what I mean?
Well,
There has to be some kind of reason. And but what I'm getting at, Jay, I'm sorry, I'll
yeah.
quit
No, no,
rambling.
keep
Is
going, keep going.
I just, brother, it makes me want to cry. I want people to experience it.
Yeah. Well, that's why we're doing this. I mean, I know how important it is. And I, you know, I'm a glass half full guy. I'm an optimist. I mean, it just comes. I think I can figure anything out, and and for me, because I went through a terrible, terrible depression
Mm,
in 1995. I was a firefighter in the Oklahoma City firefighter during the Murrah bombing, and I really didn't understand what depression was. I didn't understand what that was like, and but I went through one. And
mm-hmm,
after that, which happens in, PTSD, whatever
mm,
you want to call it. And, but what I realized for me is I had to say, okay, I had to kind of evaluate some things in my life. For me to be happy, two things have to be happen. The sun comes up and I'm breathing in and out. And if those two things
mm-hmm.
happen, then I'm just going to be happy. It was
I love that.
decision. Okay.
Yep. It was
But
discipline.
all those things, you still have bad days and still things do that. So when somebody says, "Oh yeah, I'm never
Absolutely.
had a sad day," well, I know that we still have issues. We still wake up and we're frustrated.
For
We still
sure.
do those things.
Well, you're
But even if
human.
you're
We're
not, but my
human.
wife is a glass half empty.
Mm,
But she is, and Trevor knows her very well. She's
mm,
very happy. She's very joyful.
She's wonderful to be
Um,
around.
and she's a great person, but that it's just a different
Mhm,
way that her brain works, you know?
mhm,
And it's
mhm.
funny because I start believing in everything and then it kind of dwindles down. She starts with nothing and then comes up. And so that's why we probably meet in the middle on most things and do well.
Yeah, yeah.
But just if you're not that person who you go, well, I'm just not, that doesn't happen to me. When I wake up, I'm cranky. Okay, that's
Mhm,
okay.
mhm.
But you can still get there. And
There are
using some
tools
of
out
these
there.
things like physical activity and journaling and making a decision about who you want to be and what you want to do and not negotiating those things really can have a profound effect on you. And I think
Yeah.
that's the thing that I've learned from you, Trevor, is one, just being gracious about
Mhm,
everything.
mhm,
Gracious that the sun came up. I'm gracious that, I'm breathing in and out. And that's the gratitude that I've received from you and that you've taught
mhm.
me is just being grateful for everything and expressing it to other people. So that was the one. The second thing is not negotiating with myself.
Yeah.
I don't. I'm training to do a rim to rim of the Grand Canyon, and I'm on a Stairmaster with a 15-pound pack on my back. Got to go for
It's
15
work.
minutes, and I hate it.
Yep, yep.
There's no joy at all for that.
No, that's tough, especially in such a big
But
world.
because I've said I'm not going to negotiate, I still get the 50 minutes done.
Mhm.
And I think that's really
Well, the outcome is
important.
gonna be blissful. The outcome is
Yeah.
gonna be blissful in the Grand Canyon. You're working towards something.
Well, I
I
mean,
think
it's,
that's another major point, brother. I think that we need to have things that we're working towards. I think those can
that are
be goals
hard.
at work
Yeah.
that are
Yeah.
hard. Absolutely. I think that some of the things that we don't realize that we're grateful for are right in front of us, and it could be the
Mhm.
challenge of
Yeah.
raising money for your mission. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Grateful for that that they. I mean, once again, another buzz phrase is pressure is a privilege.
You say that all the
We
time.
know a
Yeah.
lot of folks. I really feel that way, man. I really feel that way. I feel like I think that we take that for granted. I think that a lot of folks that are in the nonprofit professional space and executive directors and development directors. Yeah, I was thinking about this yesterday, man. I was like, you're in that spot for a reason.
Hmm.
So, let it happen. Like, believe in yourself. You know what I mean? That kind of stuff. We talk about leadership and how boards can suck you dry and all that stuff. And you're in that spot for a
Yeah.
reason because you earned it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
Jackie, about taking
Jackie,
care of us
thank you
like
so much.
ourselves. Yeah. Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
gonna wrap it up. Any
Oh, thank
questions
you.
about any of this stuff or anything? You
Yeah.
got Trevor, so you can, on this topic, so you can ask him anything.
Oh,
He's got so
yeah.
much stuff. I mean, I'll just tell you all because we're kind of down in, to the short rows here. He jumps in a cold plunge pool, then he goes and gets into a sauna. He goes and runs 5K, then he goes and has some honey toast, and then he goes and, sends off 35 emails of gratitude to, working with clients that we're working with or something that's going on, and goes and picks his kid up. And so he's got a tremendous amount of energy to do it. But I believe that even though he's got this physical capability, it's his emotional quotient and his attitude that powers it.
I've just
So,
been I've been very, very fortunate, brother. I've been, and, um, oh, I think that we have to receive joy. I think that we have to be willing to
mhm,
receive joy. And I'm very, very, and you and I are both, and as a company as well, are very passionate about the people around us being happy.
mhm,
And I don't think it's talked about enough. And I don't think that we spend enough time on our own happiness. And I think that sometimes we could be in a spot where we're not. And I think it's paramount. I think it has to be paramount. There's so much joy that we could be experiencing, but I think we have to be open to it and be willing to do the work and all that. But I what do people always say? Oh, life's too short not to be happy. I say life's too long not to
that's
be
right.
happy
That's
in a
great.
great
That's
way,
so good.
man. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna I've always said life's too damn long. I want to enjoy it. And sure it comes with work, but that's what's up. That's
Well,
where
I think, doing
that's what we're
simple things.
doing.
I love what Becky said, even if you're journaling, just write a sentence, just one sentence a day. just
I
one
like that
sentence.
from a win perspective. If you can
Yeah.
just consistently do that, that's a win.
Mm-hmm.
And watch where that
Yeah.
goes. Watch how that matures. I think that's
Yep.
lovely, Becky. And I
Okay.
would definitely guess that you would be a journaler.
Yeah. I want to do
So
something. This is, we just appreciate you guys coming and being here. We know there's so many people now. We're seeing it more and more. They're signing up for this because they get the recording and they're listening to it and seeing it. And so we appreciate you guys. Please
Yep.
give us your comments if you are. We want to see that. And I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to draw three. We're going to do 3 trips today. We're going to give one to
Okay.
Becky, one to Beverly, and one to Jackie.
Awesome.
Because they all came and showed up and
Because they've
participated.
all been here 100
And
times, and we
so
can't
give
thank
yourself
you
a
enough.
hand. Thank you all so
Yeah.
much. And
Yep.
we
Thanks, Randall.
appreciate you.
you.
All right. Hey, we're going to
Yep.
be back
Awesome.
next week. We're going to have a really cool webinar. Randall Lee is going to be coming back with us, and we're going to be
Yep.
talking about, I hope he is anyway. I'm not sure that Randall knows this yet or not, but we want to make sure he can get on and do it.
Awesome.
And
Awesome.
Jackie, thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank
I thought
you
I
all
wasn't.
so
I thought
much.
I was going to right when Jason started, but
Yeah. Well,
it hit me.
but Randall Lee is tremendous amount, and what he's going to be sharing is how to read the room. And it's something we did in boot camp, and we're going to send out. So if you sign up, make sure you get signed up for as soon as it comes out next week. We're going to send an exercise out for you, a test that we want you to do, and bring your stuff, because about whether you're a doer, a thinker, a feeler, or I forgot what in the world he told me I was, but I'm something.
Sensor. You're a sensor.
No, I'm not no, it was something else.
No, pardon me. No. Okay. It was
anyway.
Randall, help us out.
Yeah.
Oh, Randall left. Okay.
So anyway, y'all have a great week.
Really
We'll see you back here next week. Thank you all so much, and we appreciate you being here.